Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle and welcome to the National Parks Expedition Challenge. Today we're at the Niobrara National Scenic River in Cherry County, Nebraska, and we are right on the Niobrara River. So one of my tasks for today is to not fall in, and my helper for this is Ranger Bobbie. So Ranger Bobbie, the dam is behind us. The Niobrara River is 7 inches to my right.
Yep.
So if I start to fall, please grab me, will you?
I can do that.
Thanks so much for having us here today. What brought you here to Niobrara?
So the reason I came to Niobrara is I originally started working at another river park, Ozark National Scenic Riverways in Missouri. And I worked there for about 7 summers as a seasonal employee, and I wanted to try a different river. So I got to looking around and I applied for Niobrara, Buffalo National River, and New River Gorge actually. And the Niobrara River was the one that called me first, and I was really excited about it because there's waterfalls in Nebraska and I never would have guessed.
That's one of my most exciting things that I want to do, is to find those waterfalls. So You've been here for how long?
I've been here, I was a seasonal employee starting in 2014, and I've been here since then, so we're now in 2021, so I'm almost 7 years again.
All right. Now, so for a lot of park rangers, we find that 7-year itch comes around, but you've been here quite a while.
I've been here quite a while, and part of that's because I met my husband while I was here, and we're kind of looking at staying for a little while longer at least.
I love that. We really like that, especially since we're going to be doing some work together later on.
Yes, definitely.
So thanks for having us here. Niobrara National Scenic River. So it's really one of the first scenic rivers that we have filmed at for our National Parks Expedition Challenge.
That's so cool.
So what makes this such a special place?
So I was mentioning before about the waterfalls. We have over 200 of them along this river section, which is 76 miles from where it starts just below the Cowboy Trail Bridge in near Valentine, Nebraska, and it goes all the way down to Highway 137. We crossed about 3 different counties, almost 4, and there's, like I said, those over 200 waterfalls. We're kind of the meeting place of east and west, so we have a lot of eastern and a lot of western species of both animals, plants meeting here and commingling. We also have some hybrid aspen trees that are pretty special. They don't occur anywhere else in the United States except for right here. They're called the Smith's aspen, and they're located at Smith Falls State Park, and they are currently on the decline, and that's because of climate change. So we're kind of looking at how they're doing. We also have paper birch trees, and those are kind of declining as well. So that's our boreal trees. We also have a western ponderosa pine forest, and then we have eastern deciduous trees along the river. So right there, that's 3 ecosystems we have. And then on top of that, we have tall grass prairie, mixed grass prairie, and sandhills prairie that all kind of converge right here or commingle along the Niobrara River Valley. And so that's one other reason that makes it special. And then one of my favorite reasons is all of the fossils. We are actually one of the primary places for mammalian fossils, which are mammal fossils. Everybody knows about dinosaur fossils. We have all the cool mammal fossils. We have giraffe neck camels, we have gomphotheres, which are kind of like an elephant. We have big barreled rhinos, barrel body rhinos. So we have those here as well. We have horses, camels, all the way up into the Ice Age. So we have Ice Age fossils as well.
So besides the Ice Age mammals and fossils, what animals could we see actually coming around here right now?
So right here this time of year, you might see some different kinds of birds. Canadian goose are actually kind of migrating through right now. Sandhills cranes, trumpeter swans. We also have a lot of different types of waterfowl. So we have a couple different types of ducks. We also have whitetail and mule deer. So we have both those here. We have bobcats, mountain lions, not very many mountain lions. We only have maybe 1 or 2 sightings a year. And then we have badgers, which is what the school mascot here is named after. Skunks, porcupines. I mean, there's the list can be endless basically at this point. We do have prairie dogs. In fact, there used to be a prairie dog town, so where the little driving tour is over here in the refuge, you can actually see a prairie dog town.
Now, there's also some really big things around here. So you've got bison?
We have bison here. There's actually a bison herd that's here in the refuge. There's about 300 head right now, and they actually move them across the river in the winter and the summer, so you will be in the different spots during different times of the year. So we have bison. We also have elk. They're naturally occurring here as well.
So tell me a little bit about the bison. So does someone take care of those, or they're just wild?
So they are a managed wild herd. The Fort Niobrara National Wildlife Refuge is where we're currently standing. They actually manage the herd. About once a year they will do kind of a managed test on them to see if they have brucellosis, any other kind of diseases that mammals can get. And then they also kind of check the calves. They'll pull a certain amount of them off, and those get bitted out to tribal nations or to other refuges to see if they can restock the bison herds. Otherwise, they stay here on the refuge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of what happens here at Niobrara happens on this river.
Yes, and this is all kind of occurring along this river. In fact, if you were to float from here, about 20 minutes downstream is another bridge called Buffalo Bridge. Actually, it's probably a little bit further down than that. But during the spring, they cross the bison from the north side of the river back to the south side of the river. And usually that's a pretty slow process, and they kind of meander themselves across. But in the fall, when they do that brucellosis check and they kind of work them, they actually take them back across the river, and usually by that point the bison are fed up with people, so they want to be gone, so they'll run across that bridge. It's pretty cool to see in the fall.
Well, there's other things you can do on this river, and you've already mentioned a little bit about that, and I know that next summer we're going to be participating in a float.
Yes.
But people come here from all over to just float down this river.
They do. They actually come to float. You can either canoe, kayak, or inner tube this river. It's a pretty nice river. It's my majority class 1, class 2 within the first 30 miles, which is when most people float it. There is one class 3 in that section. It's right at the kind of the end, which is Rocky Ford. But usually this is a great river for beginners. There's a little bit to see if you're an experienced canoer or kayaker. But this is a great water to get your start on and get your legs kind of working on that.
So how far if we floated from beginning to end?
So if you were to do the full 76 miles, except for the section just above us above the dam, it would take you about 4 days to do.
4 days. Now, is that constantly doing it or pulling off?
That's you're going to be basically camping out at night, and that's kind of meandering your way down during the day.
Okay.
So you could probably stretch it to maybe 5 days if you really wanted to. But you can also, if you're speeding, if you're just going to basically paddle through, you can probably do it in 3 days. But you'd be really tired after that.
Speeding on the river. I think I would just enjoy the float and maybe have a good book too if I want to read a little bit or write while I'm doing it. What kind of programs do you offer here?
So we actually do kind of a variety of different things. We work with the refuge to do animal talks. I'm actually going to be doing a bison talk next week. We also do wildlife viewing programs. We do guided hikes. We do guided floats. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do is we go down the river talking about things you can see and do as you're floating the river. We do a junior ranger program. We're going to be looking at doing a little bit different in the future with our junior ranger program, and we're going to try to offer it more during the summer than what we've had the last 2 years because of COVID. We're also looking at doing some new programming for junior angler, which is a program that's designed to get kids out in the water, or any water, not just rivers, but out fishing, learning how to fish, learning the history behind fishing, and kind of what you can do as a family while you're fishing. So we're looking really forward to doing that. And then we're doing kind of a directed program towards our tribal partners, because we have 33 affiliated tribes that we're trying to work up to getting all of them kind of back along the Niobrara River. And we want to bring in the elders of those groups and have them kind of teach those kids about things to do with the river and reconnecting them to nature, the river, and also to their culture.
So there's obviously lots of stories and history here at this park.
There is. One of my other favorite stories is the Fort Niobrara National Wildlife Refuge is actually used to be a fort, military fort during the Plains Indian Wars, and it's actually how they were founded. They were to keep a buffer between the homesteaders and ranchers and the Rosebud Sioux, even though there wasn't as much conflict here as there were in other places. And one of the really cool stories out of that is we actually had the Buffalo Soldiers here. In fact, we had 2 different regiments of Buffalo Soldiers here at various times throughout the fort's history, and that's a really cool story.
So as we work with the national parks, we have parks that are primarily science and parks that are primarily history, but I like that the intersection here of the science and the history really tells a beautiful story. It's a really beautiful river. There's a lot to do and see and learn about, and we can build pretty much any kind of educational program around either the historical stuff going on or the natural stuff. And so it's kind of a neat kind of meeting place, and we can even talk about citizenship and being a good citizen, because we can talk about how it was a grassroots movement that protected this river. And so we can talk a little bit about how government and civics come into it as well. So since we do a lot with the river and you do floats, Tell me about the water quality here. How do you keep keep your finger on this or test it out?
The way we keep our pulse on the river is basically by doing water quality testing. And we actually have a couple different divisions at our park. The main one that handles the water quality division is going to be our natural resources division. And they go out through certain times of the year, usually about every once a month, they'll go out and they'll test the water at different places along the river. So you have 76 miles, they'll check it at a couple different creeks and highway crossings to see how that water is doing. We're lucky, our river is pretty healthy. There's not a lot going on here. There's not a lot of runoff from any kind of polluting sources. We do have some farm irrigation, but overall we're not seeing any major impacts to the river itself. So those water quality testing, they do that pretty much, like I said, all year round. We're doing water quality at least some point we are doing that. We also are checking the river for other things as well. We're checking for erosion. That's another thing we have a issue with, is erosion, because this is actually cutting away a couple inches every year. So it's always kind of a losing ground a little bit. And then because we're kind of a unique river up here in the north of Nebraska, we actually get ice jams on the water. And those ice jams actually cause the banks to kind of change, and they'll cut away chunks of the river, or they'll add to it on one side or the other. So we'll have the sand build up on one side, and a landowner will gang around on one side of the river, whereas the guy on the other side will lose it, and vice versa, and that will change over the course of the year.
Very interested in the geology of this too,
Yes.
and how it probably changes the flow.
Yep, it changes the flow
like
rate. It's a really cool river as far as how that attrition and accretion works on the river. So.
Well, we usually involve our students that are watching this. We, can have 1 million students that put their eyes on this. So we're going to issue a challenge. So kids, here's your challenge. Water quality is important no matter where you live. You want to make sure that you're doing everything you can not to pollute the water. So if your parents are changing their oil in their driveway and you're near a water source, make sure that the oil does not stay on the ground, that you're getting that back up. Or if you're painting, or if you're working in a farm, think about the different insecticides you may be using or pesticides. We can do our part by making sure that what we put in the water is not harmful, but here's another way you can help. There's a site called Stream Selfies, and it's www.streamselfies.org. And what they ask you to do is, for any body of water that you live by, take a picture of that water, and you're going to send this to the website, upload it, and then these scientists, people that are working, are going to collect data from where you are. And it's a simple thing to do. Now, if you want to go further than that, talk to your teachers at school about possibly doing some water testing at local sites. Now, here's a couple of things you need to be careful of. Don't go down by the river or lake without telling someone you're going. Take somebody with you, take a friend, make sure they know that you're going down there. And there are specific ways you're going to gather your water. For example, Dr. Drizzle is not going to reach over right now and grab water, because two things will happen. One, I'm going to be in the water, and then two, this interview is over because I'm going to be freezing. But think about how you can protect the water and then also be a citizen scientist or a community scientist by gathering data for scientists to look at. And I'm sure that rangers all over would appreciate the help that kids can give you.
We will. We love it when kids get out and help us. In fact, we have a whole program geared around that, which is our Junior Ranger program. And that's one thing we're working on, is we're trying to get more interest in doing these citizen science programs. And in fact, our local 7th graders at the Valentine Middle School are actually currently doing a water quality program with our other ranger, or seasonal ranger, Solveig.
Solveig, and we've met her. She's great. She's funny. She makes me laugh
awesome.
a lot.
Yeah, she's a great coworker too.
Nice.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment, which shows that you can be a teacher in the classroom and also work for the National Park Service.
Yep.
And we have a lot of kids out there that are interested in wearing the beautiful uniform and the hat and the badge. So can you look at the camera and tell them some ways they can get involved, even as they're students in the classroom?
Okay, so I originally started out as a volunteer whenever I was in high school, and I actually volunteered for my local park, which was Ozark National Scenic Riverways. I'm just gonna keep plugging that away. And so that was a fun park to work at. I actually volunteered and did cave surveys. I did a few wildlife surveys as well. We went and counted all the deer at Big Spring. That's kind of a fun little side project we did there. I also did a trails conservation program, and we went and built trails for a little bit of the summer. You can also look at doing internships. We actually have a couple different ones that we actually hire through, which are Student Conservation Association and ACE, which is AmeriCorps, basically, AmeriCorps Experience. And so that's another way you can get involved in the parks as not an undergrad because you're not in college yet, but as a high school student or younger. But yeah, volunteering, you can pick your local park and you can do a one-day event, or you can volunteer for a couple different days. Like I said, I did basically a summer-long internship whenever I did the trails. So I was out there pretty much every day the entire summer. And if you're looking at going into it as a career, the volunteer experience will help you out a great deal. Also, be willing to work summers for the National Park Service. In fact, that's what I started out doing in college, is I was going and working for the National Park Service as a seasonal ranger. And basically, anything I learned, I put that on my resume, because we're a little bit different than other places where they want to know everything you can do and who trained you on how to do it, including washing dishes. So I put that on my resume whenever I first started.
Well, so there's a lot of things you can do, and also just be curious.
Yeah.
So when we first got here, I was curious about this, and we used a little app that I had because I wanted to figure it out before the ranger did. She already had it known, but I wanted to try too. This is a Canadian goldenrod. Now, how cool is that? You could sketch it, you could write about it, you could research, you could find out where else you can find it in the world, but just stay curious and keep learning and reading and writing, and you too can wear this and have the beautiful badge on your shoulder over here.
And I will say, for the ladies, this uniform has changed quite a bit over the decades. We actually used to have a nice kind of like an air stewardess outfit with go-go boots at one point in time, and that's changed quite a bit. And I'm very grateful, because canoeing in that would have been hard.
It would have been very hard. Well, thank you so much for having us today. Thank you for encouraging me not to fall in the water. It's not over yet, but not to fall in the water, but also just showing how you love the river, and you found another place that really can let you express all the things that you love about nature. So thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for coming. And we really appreciate you guys coming out and checking us out.
That's all we have for you today. So from the Niobrara National Scenic River, myself, Dr. Drizzle, and Ranger Bobbie, we're out of here.
Bye.